So I think we're paying, Hitler's got us twice. We're hostage to what Hitler did, and that things which we might say are sensible, we can't do because people say, well, Hitler would have done exactly the same thing. And that worries me.
Watson has been attacked because he supports a new eugenics. By the 1970s, scientists were beginning to identify mistakes in the genetic code. Since then, pregnant women have been offered tests to see if their unborn child has a genetic defect like cystic fibrosis or Down syndrome. If they do, they can choose to have an abortion. And that's where we are today. And this is where Watson's eugenics begins. He says it differs from the eugenics of the past.
Eugenics is sort of self-directing your evolution. And the message I have is that individuals should direct the evolution of their descendants. Don't let a state do it. I think it'd be irresponsible not to direct your evolution if you could, in the sense that you could have a healthy child versus an unhealthy child. I think it's irresponsible not to try and direct the evolution to produce a human being who will be an asset to the world.
G, 1, 2, F, G.
But in Watson's eyes, who is an asset to the world and who isn't? Mr. and Mrs. Harrington have 3 sons. Their youngest is named Matthew, and he has Down syndrome.
What's that one?
Dismissal, go home.
Dismissal and go home.
All right. Yes, you want any further? Sit back. Sit up. Let's go.
What, you echo?
Echo? No.
All of my pregnancies, we never had any genetic testing done with any of the boys. I didn't even occur to me there was a reason to do it. We just figured we were ready to have a family, and we would have a family.
Sure.
First son was born at the birth center. Peter was born at a hospital because I was overdue.
Sure.
Matthew was born at the birth center, and we didn't know anything until he was born. We found out right away that he had a heart condition, and I noticed some different things about Matthew. I kept commenting on his eyes, and I kept kind of feeling the back of his neck.
Yes.
So I think somewhere down inside I knew there was something, although we hadn't been told yet.
Yes.
And it wasn't until the next day when we went to the pediatrician that she told us that he had Down syndrome.
If you were pregnant again, would you test yourself?
No, I don't think I would. I think that there would only be 2 reasons to do it, and one is to prepare yourselves and inform yourselves of whatever might be helpful if you have a child with a disability, and the other reason would be to decide not to follow through with the pregnancy. And for us, we were having a baby, and that was all it was about.
But the Harringtons are concerned that people like Matthew are becoming rarer and rarer. Hundreds of thousands of women worldwide take the test for Down syndrome. The vast majority who test positive have abortions. For Watson, this is the only way we have to eliminate the disease. For the Harringtons, it's the elimination from society of people like Matthew. So they ask that people think twice before making these decisions.
On Sunday, he and I go to the beach, and we've been doing this for 4 or 5 years. He and I go out into the water, and if it's a calm day, I hold his hand. If it's a slightly wavier day, I hold him, and you know, he holds real tight, and we jump over the waves, and then he goes in and sits on the shore, and I ride a few waves in. He likes to grade me, but 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, on our last trip out this fall, we went into the water, and it was a pretty calm day. We were about up to our chest, and my chest. I was holding him, and all of a sudden he asked to be let go, and I let him go. I mean, he's become quite comfortable in the water. And he rode this modest wave in, probably went 7 feet. And, you know, he turned over and then popped up, startled at first, and then he realized that he had ridden the wave in by himself. And the look on his face and the look on my face, and he just opened his arms, and it was one of those moments of just such pure joy that he and I had anticipated this for 4 years now. He realized he had achieved this, and I realized I had achieved it, and I didn't think, is he doing this before other kids do it his age? It was just the accomplishment that we shared together that I think is just, it's something that I have with him that, you know, I wish more people that were considering life choices could feel that, could see that, could realize that, yes, the hurdles, there's a longer approach, and you approach it together. He clears them by himself, but there's just a magic in watching him do it. That as your other kids zoom through their hurdles, you might not appreciate in all the same ways.
We have a son with severe disabilities. He's very, very intelligent, but he can't take care of himself. And so he didn't speak till he was 4, very late, which, you know, we thought didn't mean anything, but it did mean something, and doesn't like to shake hands or be hugged.
We have a bit of the opposite in our house. You know?
Yeah, no, and it's
that must have been very difficult.
Yeah, it is. And but if he can get by that first initial barrier, then he can be talk and quite charming, and but his sort of natural impulse is to pull away from people. But, you know, at times I think, you know, we're almost broken.
This is something Watson rarely talks about publicly. His son has a form of mental illness which is likely to have a genetic basis. When it comes to faults in DNA, almost everyone on Earth is touched in some way. While Down syndrome affects 1 in 1,000 families, mental illness affects 1 in 4. This is Pilgrim State Hospital. In the 1930s, it was the largest mental hospital in the world.
There was this term, snake pit. You came here and you never left. I think that was the awful thing.
Not far from Cold Spring Harbor, it's the kind of place that motivated Charles Davenport's eugenics.
I find this very creepy. I just would like these buildings to be torn down. You can think of all the sorrow and agony.
But although today there are treatments for mental illness, there aren't any cures, and Pilgrim State Hospital still houses hundreds of patients.
Now this is the hospital building. They come when they're just admitted. It was, you know, just the horror when, you know, parents come here and just have to bring their children here, or their we still don't know what's wrong with the people at that, you know, you can say, when you know cystic fibrosis, you know that you know, there's a gene missing.